There's a moment you've lived more times than you care to admit. Someone questions your intentions, undermines your worth. They throw a jab, casual, sharp, maybe even public, and before you realize it, you're already explaining, already justifying, already trying to make them see your side. But they don't want clarity, they want control. And you just handed it to them. You thought defending yourself made you honest, made you real, but all it made you was vulnerable. Because here's the truth no one told you. The second you start explaining, you've already stepped into their frame. You're no longer the subject, you're the accused. Let that sink in. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about who controls the silence, and when you learn to hold yours, you flip the entire game. Stay with me, because what comes next, it doesn't just change how people treat you, it changes what they dare to say to you ever again. Power doesn't live in the facts, it never has. It lives in what people believe about the facts. And more dangerously, it lives in who gets to define them. You've been taught the wrong map. You thought if you just told your side clearly enough, the truth would win, but truth doesn't win. Perception does. Think about it. In every room you've ever entered, was the most respected person the one who spoke the most? Or the one who made others adjust themselves the moment they walked in? The real game isn't about speaking. It's about shaping the field before a word is said. Take Ethan, mid-level manager, quiet, smart, team liked him, boss respected him. Until one meeting, someone threw a light jab. Maybe we'd move faster if everyone pulled their weight. Everyone laughed, eyes glanced toward Ethan, just enough silence to make it stick. Ethan's instinct kicked in. I'm actually ahead on all my deadlines. I sent the update yesterday. He thought that would fix it. But what he didn't see was that the moment he spoke, the room stopped questioning the jab and started watching his defense. And that's when it flipped. He became the one explaining, which made him look guilty, even when he wasn't. That's how power works. It's not about proving your value. It's about making it unquestionable to begin with. Because power, real power, isn't what you say. It's what they feel when you say nothing at all. People don't chase facts. They chase energy. They follow presence. They obey confidence, especially the kind that doesn't need to be announced. When you understand this, you stop arguing, you stop correcting, you start shaping, you stop entering rooms to be heard, you start entering them to be felt, because the person who controls the frame controls the outcome, and once you see that, you'll never speak the same way again. There's a reason they push your buttons. It's not by accident. When someone throws shade, takes a jab, questions your motives, they're not looking for a conversation, they're hunting for control. And the fastest way to get it is to make you react. That's the move, because the one who reacts loses the frame. People don't argue to reach understanding, they argue to shift power. They want to see if you'll flinch, if you'll crack, if you'll prove you're as unstable as they hoped you'd be. Jasmine knew this all too well. She built a following online, personal growth, quiet confidence. Then came the storm, a comment on one of her most watched videos, "You're fake." Just another pretty face talking nonsense. The thousands saw it. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, ready to explain, clarify, fix the misunderstanding. But she paused, and she remembered something deeper. This wasn't about truth, it was bait. Because if she answered, she'd look shaken. If she stayed silent, they'd spin their own story. But if she reframed the field, they'd have to fight themselves. So she didn't defend, she didn't delete, she replied with 5 words. Sounds like that hit something, and nothing more. The commenter never came back, but the thread kept growing, not with hate, but with respect. People saw the trap, and they saw who walked through it untouched. You see, when someone attacks, subtly or openly, they're counting on one thing, your emotions. They want the heat in your voice, the rush in your words, because emotion makes people predictable, and predictable people are easy to defeat. That's why the real move isn't to push back, it's to stay still, let them swing at smoke. Let them burn their energy, let their words echo against silence until they hear themselves, and that silence, it's not emptiness, it's pressure. It builds in the room, it builds in their mind, until suddenly they feel exposed. This is how you reverse the trap. You let them reveal their intent, you let them overplay, because nothing rattles the manipulator more than a target that won't dance. So next time someone tests you, pause, look at them, and don't answer the question. Watch them answer it themselves, out loud, to the crowd, to themselves. That's how you shift the power, not by speaking louder, but by making them listen to their own echo. In every room, there's one move that makes the loudest noise, and it doesn't involve speaking at all. Silence, still, controlled, held like a blade, not a blanket. Most people fear silence. They think it means weakness, like you have nothing to say, like you gave up the right to defend yourself. But that's a lie. Silence, when chosen, isn't surrender, it's supremacy, because here's the truth. When tension rises, and everyone turns to you, they're not listening for your words, they're watching your reaction. And if you remain calm, unmoved, you don't just neutralize the attack, you rewrite the script. Imagine a crowded meeting, voices bouncing off walls. Someone throws a subtle insult your way, a comment designed to poke. Maybe it's about your past performance. Maybe it's personal, doesn't matter. Everyone turns, they wait, they expect the usual, a flinch, a chuckle, a rushed clarification. But you offer none. You sit still, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady, maybe even a pause so pure it feels like time bends around it. That pause, it becomes unbearable, not for you, but for them, because people fear what they can't read. And when you don't react, you become unreadable. They start second guessing. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe you're dangerous. Maybe you're so far above it, you didn't even notice the shot. And now the attention shifts, not toward the accusation, but toward the one who made it. Suddenly they're exposed, scrambling, smiling too wide, explaining their own joke, clarifying something no one asked for. And you remain still. That stillness speaks louder than outrage ever could. Daniel knew this well. He was targeted once, mid-promotion cycle. A senior colleague took a jab at his ambition, implying arrogance. Everyone looked at him, waiting. Daniel leaned back in his chair, took a sip of water, and said nothing. The room moved on, but that colleague never threw another jab again, because nothing is more unsettling than a person who refuses to play the part you wrote for them. Silence is not absence, it's dominance wrapped in discipline. It creates a vacuum. And in that vacuum, others reveal themselves. So next time you're challenged, don't speak to protect your image. Protect your presence. Let silence become your armor. Let it do what no argument ever could. Make them question everything. Without you saying a word, there's a moment, right after they strike, where you have a choice, not between fight or flight, but between defense or dominance. Most people defend, they explain, they soften their image. I'm not like that. You misunderstood me. They reach for reassurance like it's a shield, but when you do that, you've already accepted their version of the story. Power doesn't live in saying I'm not. It lives in flipping the mirror. Someone calls you arrogant. Smile. Strange how confidence makes people uncomfortable. They say you're manipulative. Glance past them. Only people who can't be influenced say that. You don't deny, you don't argue, you invert, and suddenly they're the ones under pressure. They're explaining themselves. They're defending why they said it, why they felt that way. You just made their accusation a reflection of their insecurity. It's not a rebuttal, it's a reveal, because when someone attacks your character, what they're often exposing is their frustration with your control, your poise, your unwillingness to fold. The more calm you are, the louder their emotion sounds, and the louder they get, the more foolish they appear. That's inversion. You didn't fight, you redirected. You didn't absorb the energy, you returned it, unbothered, unshaken. It's verbal judo. They come swinging, you step aside, and they fall into their own momentum. And here's the twist, the crowd watches this too. They see who holds tension, who loses frame, who escalates, who stays still, and in that moment, you rise without moving. This isn't about being clever, it's about being prepared. You don't wait for the attack, you anticipate the frame. And when it comes, you flip it so smoothly, it looks like it was always yours to begin with. So the next time they say, "You think you're better than us," don't defend, don't laugh nervously, just look them in the eye and say, "I don't think. I just don't compete," then walk away. That's how power moves, quiet, sharp, reversed. Every conversation is a battlefield. But not for the reason you think. It's not about who's right, it's about who sets the rules. This is frame control. The invisible war that decides who leads and who follows. You've been tricked into thinking that if someone challenges you, you have to respond. That if someone asks a question, you owe them an answer. That if someone throws a jab, you must defend. But here's what they didn't teach you. When you react, you're not just playing their game. You're admitting it's their game to begin with. The moment you explain, you've entered their frame, their setup, their emotional territory, and they win. Even if you say all the right things. Chris learned this during a job interview. He walked in confident, had the numbers, the results, the vision. Halfway through, one of the panelists leaned in and said, "Some of your ideas seem a bit ambitious for our culture." And now, the expected move would be to clarify, to soften, to explain how adaptable he is. But Chris didn't bite. He smiled, tilted his head, then asked, "And what do you believe ambition costs you?" A silence. The panelist shifted in his seat. Because in one sentence, Chris didn't just hold frame, he reclaimed it. He refused to accept the premise, refused to step into someone else's reality. He made them justify themselves. That's the power of rejection, not of people, of context. You don't argue inside a trap. You walk around it, or better, you expose it so everyone sees the ropes. The strong don't just speak better, they frame better. In a debate, they don't answer the question, they question the question. In a conflict, they don't explain their emotion. They stay so composed it forces others to ask why they're so calm. Frame isn't about aggression, it's about authorship. Who's writing the rules of this moment? Because whoever defines the moment defines the meaning, and meaning decides who holds the power. So next time someone says, "Oh, why are you being so cold?" don't say, "I'm not." Don't say, "You misunderstood." Just ask, do you always interpret silence as threat? That's how you win without swinging. That's how you lead without raising your voice. You don't fight for frame. You own it by never accepting theirs. There's a level beyond silence, beyond calm. It's when you don't just withhold a response. You disappear entirely, not as escape, but as strategy. Absence is not passive. It's pressure in its purest form. Rebecca understood this the day she stopped replying. No announcement, no argument. She simply stepped back from the noise, left the messages unread, the thread unanswered, the accusation hanging in air like a shadow with no wall to cling to. And what happened? They spiraled. One message turned into 3, then 5. Then angry paragraphs disguised as concern. They weren't looking for clarity, they were begging for reaction. Any signal that they still had reach. But silence gave them nothing, no handle, no surface to grip, just a mirror, reflecting their own instability. Because the moment you stop responding, you become untouchable, not blocked, not angry, just unavailable. That absence, it makes people confront something they fear most, the loss of access. And the more they reach, the more foolish they appear, to others, to themselves. You don't have to argue, you don't even have to watch. Let them unravel publicly, let them escalate their own collapse, let them fight against your silence like waves hitting stone. This is not cruelty, this is control, because power doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes it looks like walking away, and never looking back, not as punishment, but as elevation. You're not cold, you're focused, you're not avoiding. You've outgrown the need to be seen by chaos. Disappearance isn't absence, it's clarity. It's choosing not to dance when the music is designed to humiliate you. Let the noise echo, let the drama perform itself, because while they chase your shadow, you move in silence, and in that silence, your presence grows louder than anything you could have said. The greatest trick they ever taught you was that you need to defend your name, that your reputation is something fragile, like glass. always one accusation away from shattering. But that's only true if you believe it is, because there's something stronger than a clean image. A commanding one, not soft, not polished, but unshakable. Think about it. The people you truly respect. Are they the ones always correcting the record, always clarifying, always desperate to be seen as good? Or are they the ones who stay composed even when the noise gets loud? You see, the more you explain, the more you tell the world that their opinion matters, that their view of you holds power over your path. And the second you try to correct their version, you give it weight. But when you don't explain, when you let accusations float unchallenged, something strange happens. People begin to fill in the silence with strength. They think, he must know something. She must be too focused to care. Well, maybe they're more dangerous than we thought. You didn't say it, but they felt it. That's the difference between being defended and being untouchable. A strong reputation isn't about being liked. It's about being respected, sometimes feared, sometimes misunderstood, but never questioned for long. Because when you stop trying to prove you're good, you start to project that you're above the need to. And that's when people stop attacking casually. They hesitate, they think twice, because your silence made their first strike echo back at them. Miles saw this shift the moment he stopped replying. He had been accused publicly, jealous peers trying to rattle his momentum. The pressure was on. Everyone expected a defense, a tweet, a rebuttal, a setting the record straight moment. He posted nothing, attended his meetings, moved like the storm hadn't even touched him, and suddenly, the same crowd that watched for drama began defending him, not because he asked, but because silence made them choose sides. And no one wants to look like they're throwing rocks at someone who won't even blink. Your name doesn't need a lawyer. It needs certainty. Let others talk. Let them guess. Let them write stories you never respond to. And with every story left unanswered, you build something far more powerful than approval. You build myth. There's a moment when the crowd turns, not because you shouted, not because you argued your way into their favor, but because you said nothing and made them feel everything. This is the paradox most people miss. When you defend yourself, you stand alone, because no one feels the need to jump in if you're already fighting for yourself. But when you stay silent, when you hold your ground with quiet dignity, something ancient kicks in. People feel the imbalance. They see the desperation in the accuser and the calm in you, and they move toward the calm. They start saying, "That was unnecessary. Why are they still going after him? He didn't even respond. What's your deal?" And in that shift, you gain something more powerful than self-defense. You gain advocates, not because you begged, but because your composure invited protection. That's social gravity. It only pulls when you stop pushing. Isabella experienced this firsthand. She was on a team where politics ran deep. Someone tried to sabotage her. An email sent to leadership, full of false implications, written to look like concern. She read it, paused, deleted her drafted reply, and said nothing. No email back, no hallway confrontation. She let it breathe. By the next week, 3 separate co-workers approached her, told her they saw what was happening, told her they had her back, told her the silence spoke volumes. Because when you refuse to chase innocence, people begin to defend it for you, and their defense means more than any words you could have said. That's the leverage of stillness. It flips the courtroom. You stop being the one on trial. You become the one whose silence draws attention, not to guilt, but to strength. And once the crowd feels that strength, they stop questioning you. They start questioning the ones who tried to shake you. So don't rush to fix your image. Let them wonder, let them argue amongst themselves, let them feel that you don't feel the need to explain, because that's the moment they realize you don't need their permission to stand tall, and they start standing beside you without you ever asking. This is where it all changes, not because the noise stops, but because you do. No more chasing explanations. No more proving your heart, no more performing for people who only listen to react. You've crossed the line, not into arrogance, but into ownership. Your silence is no longer a pause, it's a statement. It says, "I know who I am, I know what I carry." And I don't need to lower my voice to be heard. This is where your presence becomes your message, where your posture does the talking, where your decisions speak louder than anything you could type, post, or plead. It's no longer about defense. It's about definition. You define your tone, you define your pace, you define the temperature of every room you walk into by how little the chaos moves you. When you don't flinch, they pause. When you don't reply, they rethink. When you don't explain, they project strength onto your silence, and suddenly, you've become a myth they can't figure out, but can't look away from either. And here's the secret most never learn: you don't need to control every perception. You just need to stop reacting to them, because power isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself so deeply that nothing outside of you can shake what's inside of you. That's not indifference, it's immunity. You've built the emotional armor that no words can pierce. You've turned reaction into restraint. You've turned silence into gravity. And you've stopped fighting to be understood, because people now feel the weight of who you are, without needing an explanation. So let them talk, let them question, let them assume. You don't need to win the argument. You ended it the moment you stopped needing to explain. You live above the noise now, not as an escape, but as a choice. Because in a world begging for reaction, your refusal is the rarest form of control, and from here on out, you don't speak to prove a point. You speak to move the room, and when you don't speak, the room still shifts anyway.